starting point of any feature film is, for as far as the sound team's concerned, is the spotting session. And with the spotting session, in this particular instance, we had the filmmakers get together with us and discuss elements of music and the element of the sound of the creature itself. So what we have to do as a sound team is to provide the audience with this illusion that they're in a 1980s asylum, when in the actuality, let's face it, we're in a set that has been constructed, and we have to give the illusion that it's a fully functional asylum. There are patients. Every time we walk down a hallway, we're going to hear the patients in their rooms. We're going to hear the daily life of everything moving and happening around in that asylum itself. Now, when we get to the second half, there's no electricity. This is dilapidated, and if it's falling apart at the seams, we've got to make it sound like it's falling apart. It's raining, when does the rain happen? When does it stop? What does no electricity sound like? That's the biggest issue that we have, is to provide this non-modern situation in a modern situation in a modern time. On any feature film, you're going to have issues with audio. You're going to have issues that you can't control on set. And these may be, for example, a wind machine. You could have generators, noisy generators providing the power if you're out in the middle of a field. Or the classic one is the rain gag. The rain gag is really where we provide false rain in a stormy situation. We had our characters introduced, and they were in a van coming up the street. They had a blowout. They had to pull over, and a lot of those scenes were shot whereas we were forcing rain onto the van itself, onto the roof, onto the hood. And in real life, it doesn't sound the same. It's not what it should sound like, and we need to control that. Damn it! We need to separate the two. So we need to, as we'll talk about, we'll need to re-record the dialogue itself and add back that rain sound, which creates the illusion of them being in the van in the first place.
What do you want?
In the case of The Tenant, as most feature films go, we ended up doing a lot of the sound effects by just creating them in Foley. And our Foley artists are responsible for either walking with the actors and recreating their footsteps, or cloth movement is another one. Are they wearing leather hats or denim jackets or denim, or any specific thing about their clothing can we pick up on? Or even putting a coffee cup down, or opening a door or closing a door, or lighting a cigarette. Any of those things can be recreated by a Foley artist.
You're getting everything wet.
It'll dry.
To better explain ADR, or automated dialogue replacement, for example, in one scene where we have the characters in the van, and the problem is when they're talking, we've got rain falling onto the van roof and onto the van hood, is interfering with the dialogue itself. It gets the actors into the character, but now if we raise the level of the dialogue, we raise all the rain with it. And plus we have perspective changes where we're looking at one character and switching to another character. We have uneven rain in the background. So our goal is to strip that production dialogue out, replace the lines, get the actors back in, replace the lines, and then add all the rain sounds in afterwards.
Must be the storm. Well, we're gonna have to wait out in the van. Just keep the motor running. It must be the storm. Well, we're gonna have to wait out in the van. Just keep the motor running.
There was one shooting that we did with Justin Smith. We have a scene where his head is torn off and he screams at that point, and they wanted to replace that scream. And Justin tried screaming over and over, and it It wasn't what we were after, so Mike Orlowski left and came back from another room with a large blanket, and he put it down in front of the microphone, and Justin said, "What's that for?"
You aren't going to put that in there, are you? Okay.
And he said, "Hold on just a minute." He ran into the back room.
What that boy doing?
And he got this can of...
Brought me in a nice glass or cup of Slim Fast.
And here we go.
He couldn't just use water?
I guess not.
It's thicker.
Oh, God.
Like blood.
So that was messy and really a wonderful sound piece.
Definitely going to the behind the scenes.
Yeah, I tell you what.
ADR I kind of enjoy. I don't know if I'm very good at it or not, but I find it very challenging to, to have to do the lip syncing and try to emote the emotion that you want to get. And it's kind of cool because it gives you another chance.
Okay, let's review this first line.
All the effort sessions I had to do today.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
It's kind of uncomfortable, but then again, another challenge because you're trying to, you see yourself on screen and you see this bigger than life thing and you're trying to emote this, this great grunt that's going to sell. So as long as everybody's patient and stuff, it's great and it's actually fun, but it can be embarrassing too though sometimes. Oh darn, I'm losing my throat. Sorry.
One of the first questions that have to be answered by the filmmaker is, how much of the music is actually scored and how much of it is source music. In the case of The Tenant, the filmmakers chose to score the entire feature with Stephen and I. And the unique situation we had, like I mentioned before, was there were two composers working on the same film, and that was an interesting challenge.
Well, when I'm first approaching the composition, I'm looking for hits. I'm looking for musical hits that need to be there, like whether it's some kind of violent thing that needs to have a big explosion of music, or even if it's just a false scare, something like that. I need to look for those first and marker them out. Once I've done that, then it's really a matter of finding the right tempo going into those hits.
In this example, I've chosen the piano for this particular scene, as one of the instruments at least, and I'm going to layer that together with a harp sound and another piano sound and more orchestral sounds. And as we look at the screen right here, I can touch one of these notes. If I don't like that particular note, I can just grab it and move it upwards like you're just seeing there, and it keeps the same instrument, but now it's at a different note. If I don't like the length of that note, I can move this to be longer, as you can see right here. And when I play this back, it'll play longer. Or I can make the note shorter. So if we take a listen to it, this is what I've just did. Of course, that doesn't sound very good, so I can undo this. This is the beauty of doing all this stuff. I can just undo it and play what I had originally. There you go. So that's how MIDI works. You decide what instrument it is, you put the notes in, and it's so flexible to use. One great example here is the fact that I can change any particular instrument that I write in. If I don't like one particular instrument, I can change it for another. So here's one idea with an instrument that doesn't really work, just as a setup here. And here we go. So this is a pizzicato viola, and what I need to do is change it so that we put it to on a different MIDI channel, which is playing a different instrument, which happens to be playing a piano. So if I have that instrument, let's take a listen to what it would be like with everything together. So when we've finished with all of our MIDI, and when we've decided which notes we like, and which instrument we like, and the cue is set up pretty good. We've got all of our MIDI set up on separate tracks. For example, we've got a piano track, maybe another piano track, strings, timpani, other orchestral sounds, all laid out multi-track style. We're going to have to create something out of that. We're going to have to change that performance into an audio file or separate audio file so we can deliver that to the re-recording mixer. He can't use the MIDI, so he's going to have to use the audio files that we create for him. And let's take a look at how we do that. In this example, when we're changing MIDI to audio, let's take this piano track. And there's one piano line that I've played before. Let's play that back again. So that piano line, all I have to do is route this a certain way so I can re-record it onto an audio track. And as you see right above it, I'm going to have this audio track ready, and we're going to record this down. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so you can see that it's recorded the audio, and that will now create the audio file, and I do this multiple times, and I get everything together, and then I create the cue, and then I pass everything along to the mixer. So then eventually everything's going to sound like this.
There is an element that ties them together. There's a particular sound of tension that kind of hints to the presence of the creature, and that it may be there and it may not, it may attack, it may not. And so that element had to be tied in between the two. It's a very difficult process, but the music is magnificent.
In the pre-dub process, what it actually means is we're taking lots and lots of tracks, over hundreds and hundreds of tracks, and funneling them down and mixing them down into smaller sections that we can mix later on. This gives the filmmakers the ability to be right there and be involved with the shaping of the sound, which gets eventually to the final mix.
Good with all that?
One can be the music pre-dub. We can have large effects or small effects pre-dub. We can have the Foley pre-dub. We can have the dialogue pre-dub. So everything's broken down into categories so they can be easily manipulated later on.
I don't like the slap.
Whoa.
I'm gonna do it just for fun. It'll come out, but I just gotta do it.
Set Mike up with that.
Okay, I'm gonna keep that. But when Mike comes back, I'll play that for him. See if he likes it.
There's a certain obviously repetitive process in sound editing, 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 in sound editing.
You're getting everything wet. It'll dry. You're getting everything wet. It'll dry. You're getting everything wet. It'll dry.
Sorry, Claudio.
You're getting everything wet. It'll dry.
So we would hear a line of dialogue 30, 40, maybe 50 times, and to us, most of them sounded pretty good. But to the sound engineers, they found with a very attuned ear the slightest subtleties and made quite a difference. So it was fun to see them work.
Something's wrong! What's happening?
It's not out yet!
Push! I am pushing!
It's out! It's out! Cut the cord, Walter! Cut the cord, Walter!
Why, Walter? Why?
The final mix generally allows us to blend all these sounds together, and we have the ability to make something louder, to make something less loud, and ultimately that's the filmmaker's decision on how loud they want the music as opposed to the dialogue. Of course, dialogue is always the most important thing. You got to hear the dialogue throughout, and it ends up being a compromise at the end of the day. What element do we want to hear more so than the other? In one example, we had an issue in the final mix, whereas we had a gun sound and a door sound, and the two were clashing. They were happening at the same time. So we had to alleviate this by placing the gun sound a little bit earlier to make it seem like the character was disturbed by this gunshot. And what we actually did was we went back in, and the filmmakers were not completely impressed with the gun sound, so we just went back in and created this larger-than-life gun happening in the next room, which is from the Dr. Newman's character. Jesus.
Right on the f***ing door.
Does the door's supposed to happen before? When I approved that, it was way before the door.
Seems like, yeah.
So it probably needs to be moved before the door because she doesn't.
That's the reason she runs down the hall.
Yeah. Do you even see her open the door?
Yeah, she runs into the room.
No, I mean the first door at the end of the hall.
Is that the door that it's
So the door has to stay.
Yeah.
Where it is.
So during that final mix, we decided that the gun sound needed to be bigger. And that gave us the opportunity to go back in and layer all these different sounds together and keep it separate from the door itself.
Okay, that'll be enough for reverb. Nice!
That was a great experience to see the sound guys add that final element to make this the strong movie that we believe it is.